Happy Friday again, and thank you for attending Tableau Server Admin Virtual User Group. We will just wait for another 1 more minute for the remaining audience to join before we start. Okay, we have 70 attendees already. Happy Friday. Thank you for attending Tableau Server Virtual User Group. My name is Mark Wu. I'm a Tableau Server admin and also a co-lead this Server Admin Virtual User Group. Just some quick logistics before we start. Everyone will be muted. Actually, everyone is muted already during the whole session for better recording quality. Yes, this session is recorded and the recording will be posted at Tableau Community Server Forums. I just post in the chat the link. This is where a place where you can find all the previous recordings and also next week this recording as well. When you have questions, please use the Q&A button to submit questions at any time. Likely your questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Today we have awesome two speakers, Jeff and Thomas. Jeff will talk about Tableau connection with the Python server. And Thomas will further extend this topic to Tableau extensions. I cannot wait to get those two topics. Jeff, why don't you take it over?
Thank you, Mark. And thanks for everybody being here today. You know, while I like the name TabPy, the bits, bytes, and everything in between, I went and simplified the title a little bit to TabPy how it works, and we'll start with basics and get into the more advanced stuff later. So over the next 30 minutes, we'll go through a few demos, why it adds value into your entire stack, and how we went and deployed it here at Conversant for our analysts. And why I call it the perfect happy union is because both Tableau and Python are heavily used, but up until now, they've been relatively separate, but TabPy goes and brings them together into one family that can and integrates them into your Tableau dashboards quite well. So we'll show you how to go and do that. So here's our agenda. Here's what we plan to cover. We'll start with the basics of what is it, and then we'll jump right into the two other parts of getting started, where we cover the install, and we'll cover the starting to make some calls out to Python. And then part two goes over, I'll call it a little bit more advanced type stuff of some of the limitations when we were setting up TabPy in our environment here at Conversant, what we ran into in terms of deployment, because we were trying to make it enterprise ready and highly reliable for our analysts. And then we'll show you what we went and did about it. And then you could hopefully go and take some of these learnings and go and apply them into your own company. Okay, and then we'll have some time for questions later. So please be sure to put them in the QA window, and we can answer them later on. Okay, so the first thing is, what is it? So we start off with what it's not, and you know, both the Tab Cola and pie are really yummy. They're really tasty, but they're more fitting for this weekend barbecue for the end of summer. And for the millennials, the Tab Cola, it can still be found out in the stores sometimes. Coke still produces it, but it was much more common when I was growing up. But I'd say, you know, go and enjoy a Tab and a piece of pie over the weekend. So really, what we'll get down to the point of the basics of what it is. Everybody's hopefully already familiar with Tableau Desktop, where dashboards are created, and then you go and publish them up to server. And this part pretty much stays as is. But what TabPy is a communication path to Python. So you have a Python server instance somewhere. And by the way, it doesn't have to be TabPy, but it could be some other predictive external service, such as rserve for R or MATLAB server for MATLAB as alternative options. But today we're focused on Python, and a lot of the same could be applied to the other technologies. But it allows Tableau to go and make a request to Python to go and do some work. Python goes and does the work, and then it returns the result of the data back to Tableau, which in turn can be visualized. So we'll see some samples of this in a few minutes. And I wanted to point out, though, that the Python code itself can be in stream as part of the Tableau calculations that you build into your worksheets. And then this code can go and be sent over into the Python server. So that's method number one. And method number two is where the Python code can be deployed as a function onto your Python server. And then you can go and call it from Tableau. And this is what a lot of our analysts prefer, is to say they want to write somewhat agnostic functions out there that they go and put onto the Python server, and then it returns the result into Tableau. Tableau goes and calls that function to go and process it. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so here's our first demo that I call Getting Started, that will quickly run through installing of TabPy, and then connecting to TabPy from Tableau. And then we'll go through making an in-stream call. And we'll share a couple demos of this, and then we'll go through deploying and calling a function, and then we'll finally go through some metadata about the function so that people not familiar with the function might be able to say, well, how do I know what parameters to be able to pass in, and how do I know what to go and expect back? So I'm going to go and switch out of the PowerPoint right now, or like switch over to one of our Python instance servers here, which is, I don't see it. There it is. Okay. So, okay. So basically here, this is assuming that you already have Python or Anaconda already installed on the Python server or on your local PC. So there's a part of Python is there's a module called pip, which is package install Python, that goes and installs additional packages for you. So there's a package out there for TabPy server that if I go and hit enter here, then it doesn't do anything for me at this point, just because it says the requirement is already satisfied. I've already went and installed TabPy server, but it's really just as easy as this. Doing the pip install TabPy server, it takes about a minute to go and install into your Python libraries, and then you should be good to go. At this point, if we go and minimize this and go into here, This is our first demo. Tableau was kind enough to go and send me this dashboard that has crime data in the city of Seattle. So if we look at the actual dashboard itself, it has different types of criminal activity, of assault, threats, residential burglary, narcotics, so on and so forth, right? And if I switch up to parking violations, it shows the map of Seattle and where parking violations are. And right now, I don't have any Python code deployed in here. It's just using the built-in Tableau functionality. But if I come over here to the worksheet itself, there's this little calculation here called is hotspot. And if we look at it, it starts off with this script string, which is one of the functions available over here. And all the functions that start with script are basically functions that are used to call external services, and it expects back a certain data type. So this one is an external service, and it has a bunch of in-stream Python code in here, and it's calling this function called dbscan, which stands for density-based spatial clustering of applications with noise. It's kind of a mouthful and all, but that's what it stands for. And it's passing in the latitude, longitude, the distance between incidents and incident count. So if we go and drag this into color, we're going to get back an error, which I expected. I set that up. That says, hey, you get this error because you're not communicating with the external service. And what's key here is if we go and switch back onto our server, there's I have Python installed in my local user directory here, which is the default way of doing things. And then you have to run the startup.batch file, which hopefully, there we go. Okay, so now basically it started up tabpy, which opens up a port, it initializes tabpy and it opens up a port. And then when you come back over into your workbook here and you do help, under help, we're going through the connection here. Under settings and performance, there's a sub-menu item called manage external service connection. And in here, you type in the name of the server where tabpy is installed at and the port, which is default 9004. And if you do test connection, then it successfully works and we hit OK. Right. And now if we switch back here with any luck, it's going to work. So like if we change average incidents per quarter, right, we start to see some red dots on there based on the parameters that are passed into Python of where all the parking violations are. For average incidents per quarter, we change it to 2. And then we change, let's say, proximity to, 150 feet. This is where the red dots are really the hot spots that the Python calculation is being called every time that we switch a parameter here. And then it's going out to the Python server and getting the answer. And if we go back and look at the worksheet, right, it is doing all this logic where it's passing these 4 parameters in, the lat, the long, and then these other 2 were the sliders that I was playing with. It does its work using this dbscan, and then it returns the result of either yes or no, and the yes or no are labeled, okay? So that's example number 1. Right, and just to give a slightly more basic example, we'll look at some we'll look at some Superstore data. Okay, so here's some Superstore data, right? And we have the order date up here on the top axis, and we have the weeks coming down here on the bottom axis. We have 211 marks, which are all the dots going across, right? And then basically, if I take this, let's see, okay, if I take this and edit it just to show you the calculation, is doing some outlier type work that is figuring out like where the outliers are within here based on some percentiles and all. So if we drag this over to the row shelf, then we get a false and a true, and the false and the true are coming from the return statement in here of basically the return results of true or false, right? And you know, this could go anywhere within your dashboard. Right now I have it on the rows, but if I wanted to, I could change it to the colors, right? And then basically the orange ones are the outliers, where the blue ones are kind of in pattern, right? So that's an example using some Superstore data that is all in stream at this point. Okay, so and I'm going to come back to this example in a little bit to talk about something to go and watch out for, of like how many times you're actually calling your Python server, and there's some useful information out there. So the next one is really all around calling a function and getting an answer. So I get the first thing that we'll go and do is to go and deploy a function, right? So we'll come back over here to the server. We'll notice some output that we'll talk about in a little bit. And let's see, if we go here, basically I have a function that sits right out here just for testing type purposes, right? And basically it has some tags up in the very beginning to go and import the TabPy client, which was installed when you did the pip install of the TabPy server. The client came along with it, and then it makes a connection up to localhost. Since we're local on this machine, it does all the Python logic, and instead of it being embedded in your workbook, it's embedded here, and it has this specific function here of simple add with metadata, and then it's returning a result here. And then down at the bottom, there's a deploy. So what happens is if we go and basically this Python function could be run standalone, like I'm passing in 2 parameters to go and add them together. It's quite a simple function of adding 1 and 2. And then we get back the result of 3. But then behind the scenes is also doing this tab connect deploy, and it's deploying a function out there called simple add with metadata. So if we come back here to our workbook, not there, hold on a sec, to our workbook, and we go here, and basically we have Superstore data again, right? And then if we do, right now it doesn't have any Python function, but if we look at this one right here, basically, instead of it having all the in-stream logic, it still has the script thing here, but now it has a return statement, and it's doing a tabpy.query, and it's calling out to this function called simple add with metadata. It's passing in 2 arguments of sum of sales and the number 5, right? So if we go and drag this onto our row shelf, right? So this is basically what it gets back. So Python obviously isn't needed for this, but this is just for sake of demo to say we're calling a function, and then the result is coming back for each of the categories. So the last part of going over the function deploy is the metadata. So within the actual function itself, I went and deployed a schema that basically describes the inputs. and it describes the outputs. So, and that if we go here and just look at this calculation, basically we're doing a tab connect get endpoints, and then we're calling this function simple add with metadata, and we're looking at the schema. So if we go and drag this onto our label shelf, just like so, right? Then it's a little bit cryptic, but it could be helpful if people aren't familiar with the inputs and the outputs. Basically, two inputs are being passed in, and then the description is the sum of arg1 and arg2, and is basically whatever you put into that schema will go and be put into here. Okay, so that's the example of getting started. So now we'll go back here, right? Okay, so stuff to watch out for. So this is basically two items. The first one is number of calls to Python, and thank you to Rachel Bowes. She's a product consultant for Tableau. She published a white paper actually the very beginning of this week. If you go and Google TabPy Rachel Bowes, maybe she's on the call. I asked her permission earlier this week when I saw it, and she's like, yeah, go for it. And basically it helped me understand of how many times your Python code is actually being executed for your dashboard, and it relates back to performance. And then the second one relates to existing functionality. So now we'll go through both of these in the dashboard itself, right? So if we go back to our example, is it here? Okay, and it relates to this. So whenever Python functions are called, it uses a table calculation, and in this case, it's a table across. So basically what a table across means is for the entire table here, it's going to be called one time. And it's going to pass in all these little dots in one pass out to Python, and it's going to build an array of this, and then we're going to get back all the results of true or false, right? And then down here, there's some print statements just to demonstrate this. If we go back to our server here, this is where I think maybe we executed it twice. We see the star, because we see the stars and we see the falses and trues twice out here, right? But if I go and change this, and her article does a really good job of describing this. So if we go over here and we change this to compute using pane across, we'll just try this out. Then if I did it right, yeah, it's calling Python actually 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And what it's doing is for each of the panes of the years, 2014, 15, 16, and 17, it's calling Python and it's computing for that specific year. And then, you know, if I change it to, let's say, compute using cell, which I'm not going to do, then it's going to compute 211 times. It's going to take, 20 seconds for it to return. So we will forego doing that one for right now. And so that's example number 1, of just be aware of how many times Python is being called based on the table calculation that's picked here. Table across does basically the entire table in one fell swoop. But if you want to figure out results for specific years, then you do pane across. Okay. The second example here relates to existing functionality that Tableau may have. So basically, if we take this off of here, remove, and then we go to the analytics menu. There's a clustering algorithm that's already built into Tableau. And let's say, well, okay, so I just double click on clustering, and then it does a k-means clustering. So prior to Tableau implementing this natively, you might have called out to Python to go and do this kind of functionality, but now you really don't need to. So kind of be cognizant of there's a lot of analytic functionality that you can do native to Tableau, so you could try and avoid some complexity of having to call Python if it's already built into Tableau. So that's the next example, okay? And then so this demo has to do with the Tableau server setup, where basically there needs to be this trust over here between your Tableau server and Python of some whitelisting. So if we switch now here to our actual Tableau server, which I'll go into one of the dev ones here. Basically, there's some tab admin set commands that you go and do to go and set the host with the name of your Python server. You set the port, and then you do a config and you do a restart. And the syntax has changed a little bit, and to TSM for the newer releases, but we're still on 10.5. Okay. So this is important if you want to be able to publish your dashboards up to Tableau server and be able to render your Python calculations on your Tableau server. The Tableau server has to trust your Python server. Okay. And I think there's a parameter out there for the timeout as well to basically, I think it defaults to 1,000 milliseconds, but if you run into a problem, you could go and up that to, let's say, 2,000 milliseconds. Okay, so now the last subject, which I may end up running out of time here, but we'll talk about it a little bit, is the advanced Python server setup. So this really has to do, why do we even address it? We ran into deployment restrictions in terms of enterprise scale and reliability of Python. By default was deployed to a specific user directory. We wanted it to a non-user directory. And then just as you saw earlier, I had to run that startup.bat. We want TabPy to always be available for our analysts. So I'll go and show you that. And then the function deployments. So we wanted our analysts to not have to log into the remote server to go and deploy their functions. So we'll show you quickly how to do this. And then we wanted them to not have to worry about adding their own TabPy deploy lines or syntax there. They should really only have to worry about Python itself. And then, when we have many departments using TabPy, if, let's say, somebody deploys one function, we didn't want somebody overlaying the function with the same name, because TabPy is this central deployment. Okay, so the first one, well, we'll skip, since we're low on time, we'll skip over the first one and we'll go to the second one here. Okay, and let's go here. So how we ensure that it's always running is if we go to, I'm losing my place here. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. So we set up a task scheduler job that is initiated by system. So it's not by a specific user. And then basically within the triggers, it runs anytime that this machine is rebooted, and basically is calling this command line here that has some VB scripting in it that goes and references the startup.bat. And then basically the invis.vbs goes and does something like this, that it starts up a command shell, and basically what it all does at the end of the day is, if we look at our task manager here, Python is always running, and it's running as system, so it's not running as specifically as the user itself. So that's the first part of this, and I could go and post this onto the Tab Wiki after this call. Okay. The second part of this has to do with function deployments, and how we go and do that is over here for our analysts, we went and set up these. Set up these shares, and the intention was to basically say each of these shares is specific for each one of our analyst departments. So, and that's how security is set up for these shares. To skip that part for right now. And then basically there's working directories in here where there's these, this is our admin share for Insights admin. And then there's these there's these functions out here. But if I take one of these functions, and let's say I'm just working with it locally, and I say, okay, now I'm ready for TabPy to go and consume it because now I know that it's working. I take this and I put it in the ready to publish folder. And then every 5 minutes back here on the server itself, if we look real quick, there is a script that goes and gets fired off by Tableau scheduler. And what it does is it does a few things. One is that it's going to take whatever is in this ready to deploy folder out here, ready to publish folder, and it's going to move it into the publish folder. But as part of this, it's going to take the prefix of the share of like INA in this example, and it's going to prefix it in the very beginning. And it's going to go and add these first, I'll call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines in the beginning that our analysts don't have to worry about, well, how do I know how to connect up to TabPy? And then it's going to add this deploy down at the very bottom. And what this does is it basically says, you know, if one analyst department deploys simple add and another analyst department deploys simple add, then they don't overlay each other because they're all prefixed with the name of the share itself. And then basically when you come back over here, I'm just going to go and switch over to the server here. And hopefully it's working. We'll do a quick test. Hold on. Oh, okay. Successfully connected. Thank you, Jose. Okay, and then if we go over here to actually one of our analyst forecast deployments that they did, I changed the names over here to fake names of like Jeff Spike, Mark Apple, so on and so forth, right? And if we look at one of these calculations that are out here, such as this predictions, then it's calling a function called CJ underscore forecast 2, and it's passing in 3 arguments. Here's the 3 arguments, and the function is returning back a real string. So basically, if we go here to predictions, right, then it takes a few seconds for it to come back, but it will come back. This one is doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and it will come back, okay? And hopefully come back, maybe because so there it came back, and then you could do a dual access or whatever you want to have the results formatted within Tableau. So I'm not going to go and do that now. And the last part that I'll go and show here is, as part of these shares that we set up for our users, our analysts, we went and set up this deployment log to say, hey, your function has gone and been deployed, right? So this is the one that I just went and deployed, and this is a test server that we're working with, so there's not so much activity out here, but basically if there's errors within the deployment, they're going to go and show up here, and then it could be a result of why the Python counts aren't working. But in addition to the deployment log, anybody that has questions on this, I'm about out of time, but we set up an activity log as well, that any print statements that would normally go out to the console onto the server itself show up here. So the ones that I just went and executed, the print statements show up here, but let's say out in Tableau you mess up the spelling of the function name, you're going to get back errors here as well, such as forecast2 doesn't exist, the endpoint you're trying to query didn't respond, and then it's a tracking mechanism for the analysts, but it's also for us to say, hey, are people running into issues here? Okay, so I could go through that in more detail for anybody that's interested. And then basically that is the end of my presentation. The questions I think can be taken after Tomas's talk on extensions. I think he might have a little bit of TabPy as well. So feel free to queue up your questions in the Q&A window. And then I've included a few links up top here out in the community. There's a special section for external services, and then there's a GitHub page for TabPy and a Tab Wiki out there as well with some useful information. And now I'll say everybody that has the day off on Monday for Labor Day, enjoy, be safe, have a piece of pie, have a tab, and relax, and a good cheer to everybody. So thank you. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. This is Tamás Foldi. Let me quickly introduce myself. I guess you can hear me. I just check if I unmuted myself, and actually I did. So I'm Tamás Foldi, and a Tableau Zen master, mostly specialized in the Tableau development and server administration fields. And today I'd like to speak a little bit about how this extension stuff integrates into the Tableau deployment landscape, what are the security concerns, and what are extensions at all. Before starting my extension part, let me just quickly add a couple of notes to Jeff's excellent presentation. So right now, TabPy does not have any authentication method, which means that it's a highly experimental service where everyone, if it's deployed on a Tableau server, then everyone with publishing rights can execute operating system commands on the TabPy service. So as TabPy can execute any Python code, you can create a very evil Python code which executes commands, open ports, delete things, read the data. And right now, there is no way to just add any protection to this service, simply because you can only add host names and ports. Therefore, TabPy in this current form, it's absolutely, it just cannot work in enterprise environments where security is a concern based on this. The good news that Tableau is working on the hardening of the service. This is one of their strategic asset, and they are planning to invest more to make it robust and make it very similar authentication method than in ARC and external services. So that was the TabPy. Again, it's a very great feature. It's very good for individual analysis, but at the moment in this form, it cannot really be used in a Tableau server environment because you can just protect it. All right, take a big breath and let's switch to extensions. So what are these extensions? Extensions are small HTML applications hosted on external web services, external web servers, which can interact with the Tableau dashboard data. They can read the data from the dashboards, they can modify parameters, they can also show nice visualizations, and they can just fulfill a couple of use cases. So you can build custom visualization with these extensions. You can just drag and drop an extension, like say with a Senti chart or with other charts not supported by Tableau out of the box, like a 3D jumping animated pie chart. If that's the one what you'd like to have, you can build a visualization for it, or you can reuse an existing extension, drag and drop into your dashboard, and this extension will have will act like an HTML frame. However, it can take out the data from your dashboard and render the visualization according to your filter selections, and it can also listen to your events and be an integral part of your dashboards. I will show it. Also, you can do some additional integrations. So let's say if you want to make your dashboards more actionable, when you find some very good insight and you'd like to just raise a ticket in your support system or change an order in your CRM or ERP system, you can definitely do it directly from your dashboard. And you can also write back to any databases. If that's allowed, you can also call web services and just make the necessary actions directly from the dashboard without shifting away from your analysis flow. You can also create data export. You can make Excel export if you want. You can add formatting and I don't know, signing your Excel dumps, create PDF exports. You can practically build everything as long as your extensions, which can access the data, can render the desired format. And obviously, you can make anything else. So here, there is no limitation. If you think that the data and the interactions in the Tableau can drive you, I mean, it's just you can find your own examples. I can show mine. So for me, one of my clients wanted to understand who is doing what with their dashboards, and with a nice extension, we were able to answer this. So let me quickly demonstrate how this extension stuff working. Let's open a relatively new Tableau desktop. So the extension feature is there from 18.2. And let me open my favorite Superstore workbooks. That's the workbook what I'm using 99% in my life. And today is just not an exception. And right now you can just immediately recognize a new object, a new dashboard objects in my dashboard, in my desktop, but I can just drag and drop into my dashboard. Now, this is the interesting part. Tableau asked me if I want to use my existing extensions or I want to use the extension gallery. Extension gallery is Tableau's first stop shop to get new extensions. So let me just open it to show like where you can start, what are the existing collected dashboard extensions that you can use practically immediately. Here are some examples. So like write back, as I explained, this is Craig's excellent exporter, and this is mine and Chris DeMartini's nice brush filter. Let me show this. I can download the extension to my computer, and now just add it here. And now the extension almost loaded to the Tableau desktop. Now, here comes the trick. Every extension can access at least the aggregated data, and these extensions are programs, and these programs are able to post any data outside your internal network. So you have to really careful what do you allow and what do you deny. You should never ever trust an extension coming outside from Tableau Gallery or coming from untrusted developers. You have to check who is the one, who is the company, where did you get the extension, and only allow those extensions which seems unharmful to your environment. But this is built by my company, so I'm pretty confident that it's going to work. Now I have a configuration screen where I can configure my extension. I can say that show my brush filter, my D3 visualization from this sheet, use this date dimension, and use this order rate. I can also make it look like as an integrated part of my dashboard, so I can just pick to use this color, which is great. I can say, okay, save it. And now, if everything is right, I have my nice brush filter, which can just filter my data visually in a very interactive way. So this is like one very typical extension where my extension is like, it's an HTML frame, but since I referred it as an extension, it has its manifest file. It's using Tableau's special extension API. It can capture the data, and it can also capture the changes from the other part of the dashboard. So this is nice, and the good news is that this also works on a Tableau server environment. So I just deployed a nice extension, the same extension to Tableau Online, and it's a little bit sad because I think I used extension. Here you have exactly the same confirmation, and if you trust in this extension, you can allow it. Now, one very important thing for the server part, Tableau extensions are not running on your server. I mean, some part of these extensions are interacting with the server, but they mostly do and consume capacity and resources on my browser. So since this is an HTML stuff, it runs on my Chrome browser because I don't use any other browser, just Chrome, because I'm very picky. And now it just works pretty much the same as in desktop. It had exactly the same confirmation warning. So this is like a nice and typical extension. This is how can you bring new D3 visualization into your dashboards. And as you can see, for instance, the very best info topics guys, I think they're from Netherlands. They have like different radar charts, network diagram, Sankey, organization charts ready to use for you. Yeah, it's just pretty cool. So let's see what other things are possible, some edgy things. So this is the dashboard, what we were required to do. Again, so I'm working for Star Schema. We are a consultancy company. We are working for Fortune 500s and very well-funded scale-ups who can afford to work with us. And well, they were just they were like curious. What's the bounce rate in my dashboards? Who just opening my dashboards but don't really clicking it, don't really interact with our dashboards? What are the most common filter combinations? What are people doing with my dashboards? Who is looking about my salary information? And with a very nice extension which can collect this information from a dashboard. You can just collect and analyze and visualize this information. Let me show this how. So let's switch to another dashboard. Maybe let's try. I don't like this. Maybe, yeah, that's not that bad. I hate. Oh, maybe, yeah, this is good. It has a lot of filters. So let me bring here this nice extension called the Tableau Tracker. It's here. I also have to say that I'm trusting. And now it says some action required. I have to configure this. To collect the information, I need a deployment ID and say what is the dashboard name. Let's call it order details. And let me quickly get a deployment ID, which is an identifier for my data collection. Let me quickly get a deployment ID. Actually, I made this extension free, but you need to register organization star schema, and then see something. I change it very frequently. Now I can have a deployment ID, edit, and start tracking what's going on. I can make this as a floating, resize it, like it's a small one, so it's recording, and I can change the region to east, I can change it to south, I can also change a couple of cities here. And again, if I open a new Tableau desktop, which is practically from another computer, or where is my new Tableau desktop? Here it is. I can just go and check who did what with my dashboard. And to do this, I wasn't required to do any server log mining, just adding one extension. So let's see if I can get the data. And you can see that I changed the region, I changed the city, and I can also see like what were the actual filter changes here. So it gives me a very, very, very granular information of who is doing what with my dashboard, including many informations like geolocation, where do they click, what are the device, what they are using. So it's just very very useful. Let me show the desktop. So this is like one of the final things. I can correlate how many interactions happened, what was the average session length, again, bounce rate, where I'm looking to my dashboards. And to do this, I required practically no additional requirements. And yeah, it's like Google Analytics for Tableau. But I think it raises some questions, I guess. You know, I'm a security guy, as most of my clients are really open to new stuff, but they are very concerned about security, and also their compliance teams are also very concerned. So let me see how it looks like in Tableau Server. So first of all, the new Tableau Online and also the new Tableau Server has a new extension settings tab where you can just enable or disable extension on the side. There is a feature setting called feature.extensions where you can entirely disable for all sides the extension capability, but there is also an option to change it on the site level, so only site administrators can turn it on or turn it off. Here, there is another important thing, the behavior for unknown extensions. This is something what you should never ever turn it on. You must never ever rely, even with displaying a prompt for an extension. you must instead go here and add all the extensions what you audited and support one by one into here, into that list. So if I go here and open my dashboard again with the extension embedded, it still says what is the extension URL. It's really nice since I cannot really copy paste it. But if you want to avoid this warning message, you can also make this as a trusted extension. So this is the part when I'm going to cheat, because I like to cheat. And Tableau, if you are here, please make that copy paste. So full data access means that it can access the granular data, the row level data. For my extension, we don't need the granular data, so we can just need the summary data, so I can deny the data access. And since I audited this extension, I can hide the user prompt. So when I'm opening it, again, it should just open seamlessly without asking any questions. So this should be the very default behavior. So let me just iterate it. You should always turn this guy off. You should never trust in your users, not because they are evil, but it's just because you have to be very cautious. So how do this look like in Tableau desktop? So I just, in the previous example, I just collected data, not just from server, but my extension worked also pretty well in Tableau desktop. So I can collect the dashboard usage on Tableau desktop and also Tableau server, collect it into one place. But maybe you realize that also the filter values were sent to my server. So it could happen that some of your users will actually download an extension from the web, and that extension just sends out patient data or credit card or social security number information to an external server, which is obviously unacceptable. And since you can't be behind every one of your users, and since right now there is no easy way to disable the extension functionality, let me show how you can turn it off if you are not prepared or your users are not prepared to have this functionality. So actually I'm using a Mac, not because I like it, but I didn't find anything better so far. So I can only do a demonstration here. Let me close these guys, don't save. If you see, right now I have this extension button. I have that one here. And if I just change this setting to turn this feature off, the extension feature, turn it off. If I start my desktop again, and actually I'm going to do, then that icon shouldn't be there. And it's not there. So this is how you can just disable, and obviously you can add this configuration script in your installation procedure. If you are managing Mac or Windows, you already have some good best practices to manage the different Tableau settings. And this is like one additional one what you can use in case you want to disable extensions for your users. Right now, there is no easy way for desktop users to only use trusted extensions. So, you can just delete this feature if you want to turn it on. And in Windows, there is also a registry key in the Tableau's key. It's the same. So feature override off should be set to extension, and it's undocumented So there is right now no official way to turn it off. I just shared it with you because some of my friends had questions during the week, and this was the answer. Let me share some of the resources. So the developer website should be your first stop. Also, you can check what are the existing extensions you can try. And also, I highly suggest to read through this dashboard extension security article on the Tableau help site, because it explains how you should do audit, what you should look for, and how can you make sure that your environment is secured and protected. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. I hope I was able to share some new information on the extension functionality, especially for you administrators. And now, if you have any questions from Jeff or from me, then please do it. Mm-hmm. Mark, are you here, or Jordan? Can you help me?
Oh yeah, thank you very much, Thomas and Jeff, for your awesome presentation. Myself, I learned a lot. For the audience, feel free to submit your questions by click the Q&A button. There are 2 questions already. I guess we can get started to answer those questions.
Yeah, so I see 2 questions from Alex. So let me start with the second one. So can you disable certain extensions in desktop? Well, no. It's all for nothing at the moment, but this is a very, again, strategic features in Tableau. So I'm sure that there will be new features when you can sign digitally extensions, and digitally signed extensions can be executed by Tableau. And again, the support questions, so is there any Tableau support for the third-party extensions? There is no, but the contract which required to publish your extensions to your to the Tableau gallery requires third parties to give support information and give support for the client. So it's supported by third parties, but there is certainly a support for it. And yeah, for Abdul Clark, we can you can reach me out after the call, and we can have a look on your use case. Harun asked why there is no data displayed in his extension. We can have a look after that.
Okay. I don't know, Thomas, if you answered Alex's first question. Extension is great, but it's built by third party.
I feel I answered.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. There is no support from Tableau, but third parties are required to support their extensions to be in the Tableau gallery. So third party support is a requirement in the gallery, but it's not Tableau support. Is there any open source platform for extensions? Definitely it is. So if you check the developer.tableau.com, you can see that in the extension site, let me just learn more, you can participate in the developer preview, but in Tableau's GitHub webpage, you can find the extensions API with all the documentations, all the source codes, everything in it. It has extensions, it has samples, tutorials, and very detailed documentations, including API documentations and conceptual guides.
All right, Thomas, there was a question in the chat asking how to disable in desktop. Just missed that notice very quick.
Sorry, how did I?
How to disable the extension in the desktop, which you showed already, but I think some of this missed.
What? Where does all activity get captured? So yes, it's going to an AWS cloud server. So yes, but obviously there is a way to build your own similar architecture. So it can run on premise, and it's really just a simple tool. It captures all the events, and as it is, it just sends to another web service. And so that's it. So right now, yeah, it goes to our cloud servers, but you can do or build a very with very small efforts a similar solution. How to disable it?
Yeah, how to disable desktop in the extension in the desktop? You showed that. Yeah, you had a slide also. You had a quick demo on that.
Yes. So this is
There we go. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
And this should be your Tableau version. And for Windows, so this is the two ways of doing it. And in server, it's relatively easy. You just have one checkbox in the settings section.
Now, Thomas, for this disable extension, I heard you were saying that extension is enabled by default for all the desktops from 2018.2 version. Then extension, who knows what extensions? Desktop users may mistakenly use one extension that may grab sensitive data out. So to avoid that, you disable that. Now, my question is, for large enterprise desktop deployments, will you recommend disable that as a default or leave it as is, as default?
Well, I think extension is a very great feature, so I would like to turn it on for the server for sure. But disable the unknown extensions. So only whitelisted extensions should run on the server. So it's like a control environment. And for desktop, it's also really it's a question of the company's infrastructure. So if your Tableau desktop cannot access easily the outside world, it cannot send out data easily through your firewalls, I think it could work. Otherwise, it's obviously a risk, and I would rather not use it in its current form, but wait until the digital signature feature will be rolled out or something similar, where you can do a more controlled extension management in your desktop. So for server, yes. For desktop, it depends.
There is one more question in how to enable extension back after it is disabled.
Yes, so you can just delete the registry key or just delete the default setting. So I just deleted this guy. I hope I executed it. Yes, and now if I executed Tableau Desktop again, then I should have the extension back. So open it, and yeah. But again, you can, so now I have my extensions, and these defaults can be set by administrators, so users cannot change it but the administrator. So it's really like on an OS X setting where, system-wide setting, same as for registries, you can also set registry is a registry where what users cannot change. So this is how it works at the moment, but I really expect that Tableau will come up with something more sophisticated.
Okay, awesome. Any other further questions? We don't have any more questions in the QA area.
I just forget to thank you to everyone. I really appreciate that you joined in the last Friday before the holidays. So thank you very much.
Of course, thank you. Awesome presentation, Jeff and Thomas. I myself learned a lot. I like Jeff's innovative way of sharing a Python server to multiple departments, not making sure not overlay each other by setting the permission connections. That's nice. In its share, knowing that Tableau does not have a username authentication thing. And
yeah, you know, Mark, that was what? Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, that was our way of say avoiding headaches and chaos of one analyst overlaying another analyst's workbook by mistake, and came up with a method to avoid all this.
Now, for your method, I'm thinking, Jeff, will it still work if the Python server is not installed on the Tableau server?
Yes, in our case, Python server isn't installed on Tableau server. It's a standalone server where Python is installed.
I'm just curious, which team manages the Python server?
Our team does. So, it's a virtual server that's hosted on Hyper-V. And so our Windows team went and set it up and provisioned it to our team. And then we went and set up TabPy on there. And we went and set up the scripts on there as well to do the deployment and the logging and all this stuff.
Okay, so the Python server is also managed by the Tableau server team, per se.
Yes.
But other user group teams, they can just submit their Python scripts, and then the scripts will pick up and move to the right place.
Right. So, if there's more analyst teams that need to use this Python server to integrate with Tableau, then we'll go and set up an additional share for them with security of names or groups of their people. And then they go and drop their functions in there into the ready to publish folder, and the script picks it up and moves it into the, actually deploys it.
Is the Python script available to every publisher on Tableau server after it's moved over?
Well, it's deployment of Python functions themselves. So yeah, once we create the share for them and they drop it into the ready to publish folder, then the script is automatically going to work. It's going to go and deploy the function, and then it's available to anybody anybody that's authoring dashboards in Tableau. They can go and call out to that function. You don't have to have access to that specific share.
Yeah, I guess my last question for this is, is it possible, for example, a sales Python scripts library, we don't want to share with any other functions? Is that possible? I don't want support team to see my sales Python scripts.
Oh, you don't want other teams to see your Python function?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and really, if let's say I quickly go and share my screen back over here.
It's not. It's
right. Basically, if I have access to, let's say, this AOPS directory here, which is analytic operations, I only have access to the functions in there, and I won't have access to any of the other functions in other libraries.
But you can connect to the TabPy service and execute Python codes, which can dump the source code for other teams' sources. So
yeah, I guess that you could consider that a backdoor, sure.
Okay.
But when I was looking within the TabPy service, then I wasn't able to see the source code out there because it was all these what Python calls pickles, which are kind of like archive copies. And maybe there is a way to decode these pickles, but I didn't know how to do it.
Okay. I was talking with one of the Tableau product managers. I think he now owns the TablePy plus the other things. I was asking more like feature ask. Okay, what is the user and the password between Tableau and TablePy? Second ask is one Tableau server can connect to multiple Python servers. Hopefully,
yeah, right now it can only connect to one, and I think I saw a forum post that somebody was asking they wanted to connect to both Python and to R, and that's not available either. It's one or the other.
We can develop it for you or for Tableau if someone pays for it. I'm just saying, you know, it's open source and using pretty much the same protocol as R, so I think it's fairly possible.
Okay. All right, looks like no more further questions. Thank you very much again, Thomas and Jeff. Awesome presentation. And also thank you, Jordan, for your communication, organizations, making sure that everything went so smooth today. For everyone else, enjoy your Labor Day holiday and talk to you next time. And don't forget it. Join the TCA team if you have not signed up yet. All right. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.